From your local source, WCJB TV 20. This is TV 20 News 530 Live.
We begin tonight with new details of a prominent DCF case out of White Springs. The parents of the two sisters who were arrested after the deadly shooting of their 16-year-old brother are pleading not guilty.
Keith and Misty Cornegay entered the pleas this morning to charges of child abuse and neglect. Now, the two were not in court today, but instead were represented by their attorneys. Prosecutors filed charges earlier this month accusing the parents of locking their 15-year-old daughter in the same room where the girl had been sexually assaulted. According to Florida's Department of Children and Families, the parents only gave the girl a bucket to relieve herself in the room. Investigators say they do not suspect foul play in a weekend death at Jenny Springs. Two divers, Robert Jurek and Evelyn Dudas, entered the underwater cave known as Devil's Eye yesterday evening. An hour later, Dudas resurfaced and told officials that she and Jurek had become separated, and he was last seen around 3,000 feet within the cave system. Officials say members of the International Underwater Cave Rescue and Recovery Unit responded, and shortly after 10 o'clock last night, the 68-year-old man's body was recovered. Friends and colleagues say that Jurek was an experienced cave diver. The investigation is ongoing as detectives wait for the medical examiner's office autopsy results. This is the third diving-related death reported this year at the Springs.
Time to check in on our weather situation around north central Florida. A rather gloomy way to start the work week.
A little bit of rain out there at this hour, Bill.
Yeah, a lot of the rain not showing up on the radar because it's actually below the radar beam, which looks at about 7,000 or 8,000 feet here across north central Florida. But we are starting to see a few isolated spots with a couple of showers building on. And here's a view photo for today. Don from Old Town. Well, it's kind of a beautiful shot there. As you want to send in your photos, send them in to WCJBweather@gmail.com or just mention us on Twitter @WCJBweather. Thanks, Don, for that photo from today. As you look out on the storm vision radar, shower activity and thunderstorms building up a little bit further to the west. We're still waiting to see if we get anything moving in here over the next couple of hours, but we've seen moderate rainfall down to the south, mostly in Crystal River and areas of Citrus County. That's where the heaviest rainfall has been throughout most of the morning and into the afternoon. Temperatures fairly cool because of all the cloud cover and the light drizzle kind of coming down from time to time. 75 degrees southwest winds at about 10 miles per hour. And your weather headlines, well, we're going to see evening showers continuing for a while. Cloudy with showers and storms overnight tonight, and then heavy rain possible coming up on your Tuesday. We'll break that down for you coming up in a few minutes.
Time to check our rush hour traffic situation around the region.
Bob Albert joins us with our traffic team update. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Paige. David, this sports podcast is courtesy of Honda of Ocala. A couple of problem areas for the ride this afternoon. Use caution to crash with injuries near Lake City, southwest Derry Street at State Road 247. That's the second crash in that same location, so use caution if you're heading that way. One right lane is blocked northbound on US 19 in Levy County near Inglis. It's State Road 24. That's a serious crash with injuries. Also seeing delays in Marion County, now reports of a crash, possible roadblocks. The 8800 block of Southeast 100, 65th Mulberry Lane. Be a little careful if you're heading that way. Emergency crews are traveling in that direction, too. Bob Albert, that's your WCJB TV 20 traffic team report.
Thanks, Bob. We're learning more tonight about the massive relief efforts in Nepal following Saturday's deadly earthquake that killed thousands of people. Aid is pouring in from around the world. ABC's Alex Marquardt reports from Kathmandu, where buildings were destroyed by the same quake that unleashed a deadly avalanche at the base camp of Mount Everest.
The station here in Nepal this morning is absolutely staggering. What you're looking at here are the remains of what was once a 9-story tower, now little more than a pile of bricks. The death toll still rising fast, and now 48 hours after that massive quake, rescuers know they don't have too much more time to find people in the rubble who are still alive. At least 4 Americans have been killed, all of them on Mount Everest, after a huge avalanche crashed into the base camp triggered by the quake. More than 250 Americans have taken shelter at the U.S. Embassy here in Kathmandu, most of them now trying to figure out how they're going to get home. The U.S. government is sending 2 search and rescue teams to join the U.S. Special Forces already in Nepal, contributing to what is quickly becoming a massive relief effort. Alex Marquardt, ABC News, Kathmandu, Nepal.
Making state headlines tonight, a man is recovering in southwest Florida after being bit yesterday by a shark at a private beach on Marco Island. The 60-year-old man was standing in about 2 feet of water at Residence Beach when a shark measuring around 3 to 4 feet in length bit him in the leg a couple of times. The man was taken to a Naples hospital and was discharged a couple of hours later. Well, the Florida legislature began its final week with big questions about what will really get done. A budget stalemate over health care will send lawmakers into overtime. But Mike Vaslinda reports most legislation will live or die when the week is over.
As lawmakers return to the Capitol on Monday, the 2015 session is likely to be remembered more for what didn't happen than what did. At the top of the list, a budget.
Budget negotiations should have started long ago, and they haven't. And the reason they haven't is because we weren't able to get the health care issues resolved.
As a senator, Don Gates supports the Senate plan to expand health care for the working poor. Across the rotunda, his son, State Representative Matt Gates, is adamantly opposed.
We both have strong views. Senator Gates believes that we ought to expand Medicaid. I think we shouldn't. And hopefully, as a legislature, we will perform our constitutional duty of crafting a budget.
It has been 55 days since Rick Scott called on lawmakers to cut taxes on cell phone, cable TV, textbooks, and more. The cuts are going nowhere until the fight over health care is settled.
Nobody's getting anything that they want right now until we see what the budget is, and we won't have one by Friday, so all remains to be seen.
As lobbyists hang outside the chamber doors, they and lawmakers will use the final week to try and salvage something to take home. Surprisingly, the most heavily lobbied bill this week is the so-called Whiskeys and Wheaties bill that would allow big box stores to sell liquor inside their main stores. Its fate, along with hundreds of other bills, won't be known until Friday. In Tallahassee, Mike Vaslinda, TV 20 News.
In the first 7 weeks, lawmakers passed just 24 bills. Last week, another 100 were sent to the governor. David?
Police say at least 7 officers were hurt after a violent clash with a large group of protesters in Baltimore. Tonight in Covering America, police say one officer is unresponsive and others have broken bones after people threw bricks and rocks at officers. The riot happened just hours after the funeral for Freddie Gray, who died of a mysterious spinal injury while in police custody. At one point, a police car was surrounded and destroyed by people jumping on it. The nation's new attorney general says she wants to restore, quote, trust and faith both in our laws and those of us who enforce them. Loretta Lynch made the statement today in Washington, D.C. during her swearing-in ceremony. Lynch has been a federal prosecutor in New York and was confirmed on Thursday by the U.S. Senate. The best friend of Tamerlan Tsarnaev's wife says Catherine Russell texted her on the day of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings to say her husband was at home at the time of the attacks. Gina Crawford testified for the defense today in the federal death penalty trial of Tamerlan's younger brother, Johar. He was convicted of all 30 charges against him, and jurors will decide whether to sentence him to life in prison or to death. Tamerlan was killed in the days after the bombing. Almost 3 years after one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history, the trial for the man who opened fire at a Colorado movie theater begins. ABC's Brandy Hitt reports James Holmes is accused of killing 12 people and injuring dozens more.
And one person came there to slaughter them.
It was a calculated massacre. That's how prosecutors describe James Holmes' attack in Aurora, Colorado.
He tried to murder a theater full of people to make himself feel better.
The question at the center of this trial was the admitted shooter insane when he unleashed a hail of gunfire inside the packed movie theater, killing 12 people and wounding 70 others.
I got 7 down in feet or not. 7 down.
Nearly 3 years later, his victims and their families are preparing for the graphic reminders of that evening to play out in court.
Well, living with it every day already, it's already horrendous. How much harder can it be, really? We know that 6 bullets hit our daughter.
I can replay it in my mind almost like it happened yesterday.
Jarrell Brooks was shot in the leg and will come face to face with Holmes for the first time when he testifies.
The most I can say is, you know, I forgive you what you did, but I hope justice is served today.
Prosecutors are pursuing the death penalty, claiming the neuroscience student planned the attack for weeks, building an arsenal of guns and ammunition, even leaving behind booby traps for police in his apartment. James Holmes' attorneys hope to spare his life in the courtroom behind me by convincing the jury he is battling mental illness. He will be shackled to the floor during this trial that is expected to last at least 4 months. Brandy Hitt, ABC News, Centennial, Colorado.
Tonight in Covering the World, a policeman is dead. 2 others were injured after a gunman stormed into a station in Bosnia. The gunman was killed when he stormed the building. The shooter reportedly stated the Arabic phrase for God is great during the shooting. town sits at the border with Serbia. Russian bikers belonging to the Night Wolves group, which is loyal to President Vladimir Putin, are now being kept from entering Poland. The trip was supposed to be part of a World War II memorial ride across Eastern Europe. Polish officials deny the riders, saying they would be trying to spark protests. Coming up, TV 20's Hubert Meisel is looking forward to what could be an exciting summer for the Gators football team. He weighs in on Coach McElwain's inaugural season in tonight's Meisel Minute.
Plus, the price of gas rising again. We'll explain what's driving higher prices as many people consider their summer travel plans. Those stories and more next on 5:30 Live.